Hey everybody, welcome to the Board Game Specialist. I am Melanie.
And I am Carla.
And we're on episode 18, and this week we're doing small box, big punch, or big games. And this is one that I gotta say, I have a lot of, because when I first got into the hobby, I lived in a fairly small house, so I had access to one closet, and everything got Tetrised as much as it could, and if I could find like a little box game that was a lot of fun, I got a lot of those. How about you, Carla?
Yeah, I have a lot of those too. And just like, because shelf space is so valuable.
It really is. It's like people have been posting pictures of their Marvel United that just came in, and there's like 20 boxes, and I'm like, there is no way that I could spend that much space on one game. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do it either.
Now,
would
before
have to condense it somehow for sure,
right? But there's it's as tall as they are, like it's a tower.
I've seen that.
What? Well, good for them, but yeah, maybe they have more space than we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I hope. Now, before we get into our top 9 for the week, Carla, what have you been playing?
Well, I have a couple games I played over Mother's Day, because the last time we recorded, talked about other games. But so with the family, I brought out Longshot, the dice game.
Oh, nice.
It was really fun. It's like a betting kind of gambling game, but it's a roll and write as well, and a race game, which is really neat. And I had kind of seen it on Kickstarter, and I thought, I don't know if that'll go over well. So I just, passed on it. But then Wizards Loft, our local game store, got it in, so I went and picked it up. I thought, we'll try it for Mother's Day, and the kids really liked it. It was fun. It's really neat great. Because so these horses are racing around the track, depending on what you roll, and you can buy certain horses, and you can bet on other horses. So even if you own a horse that wins, you do get a lot of money. But you can also bet on that horse before he gets to a certain point. Unless you have this special thing, you can keep betting on him until he wins or whatever. So you could have your bet be like $15 as a multiplier. That multiplies what if he's first place, it's like a high number. So you don't just have to own the horse to win. You could just be betting on these first, second, third place horses and win the game. And there's all these little bonuses you can get, and it's just really neat. It's a fun game. We also played Bristol 1350. Now, I'm not a huge social deduction game player. I've only played a couple. I've played something about Hitler. What's it called? Secret Hitler.
Yeah.
Wasn't a fan. I mean, I'm not a fan of that theme either, but I've tried Werewolf a long, long time ago. Before I was a gamer, I would kind of like to try it again as a gamer. But this one, it's kind of interesting because, first of all, it comes in this box that looks like a book. So you literally can put it on your shelf, and it looks like this old vintage book, right? So now I've started using my living room shelves as like there's all these different games that I can like stick on there, and they just look like books and stuff. Because John's like, I thought that was a book. I'm like, yeah, no, it's a game. But anyway, it's still a neat game. It's a social deduction game, but you open this book and you roll out this player, like what are those player mats made of? I always forget. Neoprene mat.
Yeah.
This little neoprene mat with these little figures, these little carts, and then a deck of cards. And you start in these carts, and you're kind of racing to get out of the city. Can't remember the city it's from. But you want to get out and not get the plague. So you're in these carts, and you get these numbers at the beginning, and nobody will have the plague at the beginning. But depending on the numbers you get, if your cards ever add up to 6, you have the plague, and you'll always have it. You can never get rid of it. So then you just try to give it to other people. But if you don't have it, you want to stay healthy, because if you can get out of the city and you don't have people in your cart with the plague, then you've won. So it's interesting because you have to kind of convince people, no, I'm totally healthy. I jump in my cart. We can get out together. Or then you're just like, you would love it because you wouldn't trust anyone to. You'd be like, you're all sick. I'm driving a cart by myself. But you can, like, if you're in a cart and say your cart's behind another cart, one of your actions can be to, like, just push somebody out, or you could just jump into the next cart in front of you. Or you can, if you're in the back of the cart, you can move to the front, and it's just kind of funny how it works. You can't, if you kick someone out and, like, it's the last cart, they die. But if they were sick, you also die. So you got to be careful. You can't just kick everyone out and be done. But it's interesting. It's just a kind of a neat little game, but we had fun with that one. A couple other ones I played was Isle of Cats. I have the Kittens expansion. So we got that one to the table. A couple times now, actually. It's really good because it adds littler pieces. Because, you know, like you have these big polyominoes that you're trying to place these cats on your boat and trying to cover up all these rats and whatnot. But the kittens are smaller, so they fill in all these little spots. But they still count as a cat each, so your families are bigger. Because you have all these little ones in there. And there's a couple other little things in that expansion. And then we played Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest.
I want to play that one.
Yes. We'll have to maybe play that at Gobfest.
Oh, yes. So how was it?
It was good. It's we only played with 2 players. I think it's better as a multiplayer game. But it was still okay because you kind of have an AI there as well. And you have this huge deck of cards that someone will choose 9 out of, like, just randomly, and then everyone takes those same ones out. So you start with the same characters, and then you each you each secretly pick a card, and then you'll flip it kind of at the same time and then place them on this boat, depending the order they're in. And then you do the actions in certain order. Some will get kicked off, some will steal from others, and then you collect all this loot, and they add up to, like, doubloons. And I think it's 3 voyages you do, so it's it takes a little bit of time, but it's kind of fun because you're, you know, going back and forth, stealing and kicking people out of their boat or killing them, I think, because there's a graveyard they can go to, and it's kind of a fun party game. And then the one little game I got soloed last week was Cascadia. I was doing the campaign. There's a solo campaign on that, so it kind of gives you a starting scenario that you need to, like with your cards and at the top, and then what you need to accomplish throughout the game. So you may have to, like, have certain animals at so many points, and then other animals at some other points, and you might have to have your terrain, like, in certain areas or something. It's tricky and puzzly, but it's really fun. And that's some of the games I got played. What about you?
So, I played, well, like last week we did our dice game, and that gave me the itch to play a little bit. So we ended up playing Pandemic Rapid Response, which was on my list, and we played it, me and Lee, and we didn't make it, but it was neat to kind of play it again because there was a few things, like, I know you're collecting these things and I don't know, but because you're on at first I thought it was on a train, but you're on a plane and you're going from city to city to drop off emergency resources for them because there's this pandemic going around. And depending on what comes up, what city's going to need. And then you'll have, like, okay, so you got to put so much food together and water together, or, you know, medicine together. But when you're doing that, like, you have these segments in those departments and you have to put the dice of that symbol on it to kind of collect those resources, and then that goes into the cargo bay, and then it creates, and once say, okay, great, I'm collecting this, it's going into the cargo bay, then you got to take all the dice that you used to do it, you roll them all, and then even one of them that's a circle creates trash. And you got to make, like, kind of control the trash level of your plane as well, because, and that's how we lost. Like, we ended up getting way too much. We were like at 9, and it's like 10, and then you lose if you go one more above 10. And then we had gone and recycled a bunch, so it was back down, and then we got like, oh, okay, great, we need water. We got water, and then it created one trash too many, and then we're like, that's it. The plane got bogged down, and we lost. But it was neat. It was so much fun. It was just one that, and it's more like real time. So you kind of got the speed element because you got the timer going and you got 5 minutes and you do as much as you can. Then it's the next person, then you do as much as you can. And it just kind of keeps going around till the timer stopped. But it was neat.
And is it actually only a 20-minute game?
Yeah, well, it's pretty quick. Yeah. Cause with the timer, you're not, but, you know, I can't remember. It's probably around that long.
Oh, neat.
But you can, because you got so many, you can go through the timer so many times. But when you do a delivery, you gain more time. So you can collect more time. So you get to flip the timer extra times, but you have to do your deliveries in order to be able to do that. So yeah, no, it was interesting. It was neat. And then it was my friend's birthday, and we always give each other a board game for like birthdays and holidays and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
So I got her Holi, Festival of Colors.
Oh, yes.
And that one looks really we ended up playing it, but it looks really interesting because it's on 3 levels. So you have the bottom board, and then like the middle board and the top board, and it's about throwing colors around. It's a festival in India, I guess. And you start on the ground level, and you're splashing paint around, and then you'll have a card that kind of creates a pattern where you can put the paint. Because everybody has a different color, so you put your colors, and they're worth 1 point on the bottom, 2 points in the middle, and 3 on the top. And then when you get to a position where you have paint all around, you can actually move up a level. Now you can never move back down, so you're up a level, but now you're splashing paint on the upper level. And if there's no paint below, then it'll fall down to the bottom level. But if there's paint below, then you start scoring on the second level. And then you can move on to the third level, and then you're splashing paint there. It was really interesting, like that multi-layer, abstract kind of puzzly game. It was, honestly, it was like at first, when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know. It kind of looks gimmicky. But it was really neat, kind of added a level to this puzzle, and it was a lot better than I anticipated it to be. So that was really neat. Then we played Blokus, the dice game, which we played this one a few times now. So I really like the Blokus because you have like these weird polyomino shapes, and you got to connect your colors by touching corners, but they can't share a side. So this is a flip and right game. So, and each round you pass the color marker around, and you roll the dice, and depending on what dice, like if you're 3 players, you would roll 3 dice, and then, one person will pick a dice, and then you get to do one of those shapes. And then you color it in on your little grid. And when you're coloring a yellow, the yellow has to connect with other yellows on the corner. Then next round, you're going to be coloring like a blue, and then a red and a green, and then it keeps going around there. And then the dice kind of determines which shape you can do. And then if you can't fit the shape in, you can use a wild to utilize one of the other shapes. But when you use the shape, it's used up. You got to mark it that it's been used. And you're going until you can't fit anymore. And then you kind of count all the spaces you couldn't fill in, and whoever has the most empty spaces loses a game, right? So you're trying to fill the board as much as possible. So it was really cool. And then we also played 13 Minutes, the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. And I guess it's based on, this is a small little card game. It reminded me, well, it was kind of interesting because you start with Cuba, and it's like, I guess the US and the USSR were kind of in like almost triggered World War III in the 60s. Okay. And this is kind of replaying this, where you're trying to gain control without initiating a war. And so it's an area control game. And then on your turn, like you'll have these cards, and you can activate the card. And there's US card, there's USSR card, and there's UN card that are neutral. And it allows you to put like your cubes, which is influence, on some of the battlefield. Each card becomes a battlefield, but you got the neutral area that's in between you. Then you can pull cards towards you, and you can cards could go towards the other player as well. And then at the end, like you play these cards, and it'll shift things around. So you're trying to shift cards towards you, because in the case of a tie, that gives you the upper end, so you would win a tie if they're in your area. But if you ever get 3 cards that have a similar symbol, you've kind of created too much power, and it's going to initiate the war. So then you don't want to bring too much on your side. It was interesting. It plays really quick, and I lost horribly, like horribly, but it was neat. And yeah, that's kind of what I played this past week.
Awesome.
Perfect. So now we're going to start our list of our top 9 small box, big punch games, I guess. So Carla, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is called Fort, made in 2020 by Grant Rodiak. Now, this is a card game, basically. The theme is really cute. You are kids, and you are just collecting pizza and toys, and those are the resources of the game. Trying to build up your fort, but you have all these friends that are your deck of cards that you start with, and each hand or each round you will take 5 cards. I think it's 5, and you will choose which ones to play, and they each have a suit on the top of them. So you'll play, say you play like a couple of the same suit, because that would give you like a stronger action. I can play those down and do an action, and then the people around can follow me. If they have a card from that suit, they can lay it down and do the public action. So there's a private action, a public action on the card. And the actions range from building up your fort, collecting more pizza and toys, putting them in your backpack because that makes them a little more safe in there, the resources. Putting some friends on the lookout. So that's interesting because your player card or your player board on the left hand side, if you add someone to the lookout, then they're kind of a permanent icon, like a suit. So if you ever play something else, you have automatically that suit. You don't have to play it from your hand. Like you have to play the main one, but then that will add to it. So it's kind of neat. And the one neat thing is, so the cards you don't play in your hand, they will go out in your yard. So some of your friends, not your best friends, because you have 2 best friends that will stay with you throughout the whole game. But you'll play friends down that you haven't used, and people can take them. So if you don't play with your friends, they're going to go and play in other yards, is the thematic for that. But it's really neat. It's kind of, people say that it's similar to Glory to Rome, which I think that's pretty that's really cutting it, because it's a very slight off of that, but nothing in depth like that. But it's really fun. And then there's like a little expansion, cats and dogs, and these dogs, and like they do different things. Like the dogs will always be in the deck. Like you always have to play them out, so people can always take your dogs and stuff. But they do different things. And there's also little objectives that you want to accomplish, or you get some little superpowers that only you can do throughout the game. It's really cute, and it plays up to 4 people. But it's a really fast game too, probably like half hour, 45 minutes. And it just ends once somebody builds their fort to a certain level. And that just triggers the end game, and then you kind of add up your points from there. But it's really neat. I don't know, have you played Fort?
I haven't. No, it looks cute. It sounds so cute.
Yeah, it's just a little box, though. It's really cute art. It's made by the publishers of like Root and Oath and those, so it's kind of the same kind of art, which is really cute. But yeah, so that's my number 9, Fort.
Perfect. So my number 9 is Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. It was published in 2020, created by Scott Alms, and it's a Gamelin Games. I'm a big fan of the Tiny Epic series, and what's really neat about the dinosaur one is that, you know, there's a lot of dinosaur games out there that you're building your dinosaur park or your dinosaur zoo and so on, and you gotta, you do this. And this one kind of, you're a dinosaur rancher, so you're raising dinosaurs and you're kind of getting them ready to sell to those parks and those zoos. So you're not kind of worrying about attractions or anything like that. You're just raising dinosaurs. But then you need to have different pens that you're going to put the different dinosaurs into. And then, so you can't put a carnivore with your other dinosaurs because they're going to eat them. So you got to keep everything separate. And you got to make sure that they're well fed, because if you can't feed them, then they're going to get out. And when an herbivore gets out, it destroys fences. And when a carnivore gets out, it eats the other dinosaurs. And you've got your little map, and there's like water will create natural barriers, so you can kind of build around that. So you're building your little, enclosures, and then breeding these dinosaurs and kind of getting DNA formulas to make more dinosaurs. And then some are worth more, but they're more difficult to kind of keep together. And the feed, it was really neat. We enjoyed this one quite a bit when I played it. So that's why it's my number 9, Tiny Epic Dinosaurs.
Awesome. My number 8 is Tiny Epic Galaxies. So this one's by Scott Alms, made in 2015, and this is a dice placement. You all have a certain amount of dice that you'll roll and take turns taking an action. And it's kind of has a similar mechanic where you can follow as well if you have culture. So you can gain like culture, you gain energy and other things throughout the game. And the culture is what you will use to follow other people's actions if you choose to. It's neat. You can take like an action, placing your dice on ships to take different actions or colonize planets. You can unlock more ships and complete missions. Now, the one thing is you have a converter as well. So if you roll your dice and you get things that you don't want, you can convert them to things you do need. I am not a space themed game. I never thought that I would like this, let alone buy it. But I had heard so much about it from so many people. I'm like, I got to see what the big deal is. So I bought it and tried it, and I love it. It's one of my only space themed games, but I really like it. Those tiny epics are just so awesome because there's just so much that comes out of that box. You're like, whoa.
It is. Yeah. And the Galaxy is probably the one that takes the least space table-wise.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my number 8.
No, your number 9, wasn't it?
My number 9 was Fort.
Oh, that's right. We're on number 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, geez. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm with it. So my number 8 is Tiny Epic Pirates, published in 2021 by Scott Alms, and it's a Gameling game again. So this one is neat as well. Like you have the map that's created, and that's what Tiny Epic is so cool when they make like the map ones, because you have all these cards that kind of fits in that'll create this big map. So it creates this big game, but it's a tiny little box. And then like the resources, the way that they keep track, instead of having lots of little resources, token stuff, like you just have on your little player board, like where you move up and down with the resources. Now with Tiny Epic Pirates, the way that it works is you have these 2 merchant ships that go from like corner of the map to corner of the map, and then they go back and forth distributing goods to, like the 2 main port or whatever. And our goal as pirate is we're going to try to go and steal the goods from them so that we can go and sell them on the black market, create money. And then we have enough money. We want to bury treasures. And the goal is to bury, I believe, 3 treasures before the end of the game. But you also have the Royal Guard ship, Navy or whatever, that they're patrolling as well to trying to keep the water safe. And then, so you're trying to stay away from them. You're also trying to stay away from rough waters and storms, because then that'll cause you to get into trouble as well. But then you can also, if the Navy is coming too close, you can kind of hide out in a little alcove in the water and stuff. So it's really neat. And then the back and forth, and then when you collect the goods, and then when you sell the good, it kind of resets the value of that particular good. So then if like somebody's selling spices you were hoping to sell, it's like, oh great, now I have all this, but it's worth absolutely nothing, and you got to build up the money that you have. It's really neat. And then the whole rondelle thing to it, like there's a lot going on with this game. It's really cool. And that's my number 8, Tiny Epic Pirates.
Awesome. So my number 7 is Caper Europe, made in 2022 by Une Rubio. Now this one I've talked about before. This was one of the first Kickstarters I got this year that arrived. It was a remake of just the game called Caper, but it is just a beautiful production. It's a 2-player game, and you have this big long board in front of you with 3 locations on it. And you have, I think, 5 different decks in your game box. So it's like, you could do Paris, Barcelona, London, and then there's a couple other ones. So you'll choose one of those, and then you'll put those cards into the main deck for what you need to put in each pile. And you'll put one of the location on each of the 3. And then what you're doing is you're thieves, and you're trying to get the most loot and trying to control these locations. So you have 6 rounds of playing cards, and 3 of the rounds are thieve rounds and 3 are gear rounds. And you're going to pick up a stack of thieves, each of you, and you'll play one, and then you pass the deck to the other player. Then you each pick one again, and you play one, and do that until you have one card left, and then you each discard it. Then you pick up the gear deck, and you're going to do the same thing. And it's really neat because the thieves, some will give you money, and then you need that money to spend on gear for the next round. Some of the things you can blow up the other person's gear, like that is right across from you on one of the locations. So they have to take back that card, and if they gain money, they have to pay it back. And if they end up having, like, there's only a certain amount of coins in the game. So if they take all the coins and you play a card that gives you coins, well, they come from them. They have to give them to you. So there's not like unlimited supplies. You're also trying to get, what are they called? Like precious jewels and it's a little set collection game within the game that you're doing. The cards that you're playing are also going to give you points depending on what color location is there, or what the little scoring is on each location. It's a really neat little thinky game for 2 players. It's awesome. I love it. I wish I could play it more. I've only played it a couple times so far, but I got to get it back to the table. That's my number 7, Caper Europe.
Yeah, I haven't played that one. It sounds cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
So my number 7 is another Tiny Epic game because I have so many of them. This one is Tiny Epic Zombies. It was published in 2018. This was the first Tiny Epic game I kickstarted. That was kind of when I started getting into the hobby. So again, Scott Alms, and it's a gambling game. And this one is super neat as well. So you have all these cards and you're building a mall. And the cards are double-sided. So you have the courtyard in the middle, and then you have these cards, and then you kind of build the mall all around. And depending on which side you end up putting on, how the mall is all going to come to be. And then you have all these different characters to pick from, and you'll kind of set, and then you have special abilities, and you have ammo and health. And if your ammo and your health ever connects, your character becomes a zombie. So you flip your character card over, it's a zombie. You take another bystander, take a new character, and you kind of keep going as a different character. Because you've been turned. And there's zombies all over in this mall, and they have these tiny little zombie meeple that are so neat with print screen, and like they have their head in front of them. It looks cool. Like the look of this game is really neat. And depending on, you have different kind of goals that you got to do. So it could be that you have to kind of get radio out to the outside world to be able to get out of this mall. So you got to go collect these different parts to get the radio going. Or the helicopter's going to come and or you're going to get away with the helicopter, but it's not running. So you got to go around and collect these different parts. And it all has like bunch of different goals that you're going to be playing as. And then you'll draw 2 or 3 of them. And then it kind of tells you how to set up. Okay, so you got to set up, and you got to go find this thing, and then you got to go find this next thing, and you're trying to do that before all the bystanders become zombies or you get taken away. And this is really interesting because you can play this game cooperative, or you can play it where every man is for themselves, or you can play it where it's cooperative against one player that's controls the zombies, and so on.
Oh, neat.
So it is really neat the way they've done it. And like I said, the component on it, and then you kind of build the whole map. Like it becomes quite a big game, but it's really neat. So that's my number 7, Tiny Epic Zombies.
Awesome. I haven't played that one yet. I played the other 2. I like the dinosaurs and the pirates, but I haven't tried that one. All right, my number 6 is Red Cathedral, made by Isaac Sheas in 2020. This is a box that's a rectangle, though. It's a little bit bigger than those square like boxes that we were talking about, but it's thin, and there's a big game packed in there. It's like a little euro in a like a small box. So you're trying to become the most successful architect team. You're helping to build the cathedral. There's some area control, there's some dice drafting, and the dice drafting is so neat because you have this rondelle with a dice on each spot, and each spot you have a little chip that denotes like what resource you're going to get there. So when it's your turn, you're going to pick up one dice, and whatever number's on there, you're going to move it that many times. To like, so say I had a 3, I have to move it 3 spaces, and I will get 3 of those things there. So whatever it is, like wood, stone, gold, or whatever you're wanting to get, you will take that resource, and then you're going to roll that dice. So it's going to change, like the rondelle changes up every round. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a really neat mechanic, which I've never seen. And what you're doing is you're trying to build up this cathedral. So this cathedral is built by cards every game, and you can play a whole bunch of different cathedrals, and they are like aligned up with like a roof, some middle, and a bottom. And they'll be like, say one has like 3, and the next one has like 4, and then like a 2. So it's all different levels of them. And what you're doing is you're trying to kind of control each column. So have the most control in each one. And having control will be building one, because as soon as you start to build one, nobody can come in and build that piece of it. But they could put, once you've completed it, they can put a decoration on it, and that gives them some control of it as well. So the different decorations give you lots of points. So sometimes you've built like, this whole column, and then people come and decorate it before you have a chance to, because you need certain jewels to do that. It's really neat. I think it's a first-time designer, I believe. Or maybe for like a bigger game, but they're coming out with something else, and it was a really interesting little game. That's my number 6, Red Cathedral.
Perfect. So my number 6 is my last Tiny Epic game in my list. I've listed all of them. They just didn't make the top 9. But my number 6 is Tiny Epic Dungeon. That's the latest one I got. It was published in 2021. Again, Scott Alms and Gamelin Games. And this one is really neat because you're building, you start off with 4 squares in this dungeon. And you explore, so you'll be adding more into the dungeon. So it's a dungeon crawl. And it has miniatures. Like, this is the first time that Tiny Epic has kind of introduced little miniatures. And the thing with miniatures, it's not the type of thing I try to seek out, because games with miniatures take so much space. Right away, you get a whole extra box that comes with it, and it's just so much bigger game that takes so much real estate in your shelf that I don't normally get a lot of miniature games. But this one is still the same Tiny Epic box size. It's really small. You have these little miniatures, and then you're going around this dungeon, and you'll be kind of dealing with traps and monsters, and you're trying to find the gate to the big boss monster, basically. And then there's different ones depending on which one you end up playing. And then you have the dice, so you'll have dice that rolls. Now, the first time we played this, we did really well. And I knew because of that we were doing it wrong, because everybody was commenting at how hard this game was. And I was like, okay, we're not doing this right. And then we weren't, because you have the monster where it moves forward on the monster track, and then different things will happen. More monsters come into the dungeon, different things will happen. And when you roll the dice, if you get a monster symbol, that moves forward. And we were only moving it then, so we didn't roll the monster symbol that often. Wow. But you're supposed to move that forward every round. So that's why it was a little bit easy. But you could tell it was going to be great, how the board kind of builds up. And then you can only go like 3 in each direction, right? So, and you're trying to not block yourself out, right? Because if you go and start exploring this side, and then if you ever kind of create a loop, say, oh no, we trapped ourselves in this dungeon and we haven't come across the gate. So that hasn't happened yet, but it could. It was neat. So that's my number 6, Tiny Epic Dungeon.
Awesome. How many Tiny Epics do you have?
Geez, well, I have Western, Galaxy, Quest, Dinosaur Pirate Zombie Dungeon. What else is there? Oh, I have Kingdom and Defenders. I think I have them all. Oh, wait, and then I have Tactics. And then I just backed the Tiny Epic Vikings. Yeah, so I think I do have them. Like I said, I was so limited in this space, and then I got my first Tiny Epic. The first one I got was Kingdom, Tiny Epic Kingdom, and I was blown away by it. I was so impressed when I played it. And it's one of those where you do an action, then everybody does that action, and you're building and you're collecting resources. Kind of has a Catan feel a bit to it. Yeah. And I was so impressed with that one. I was like, oh my God, I need these games. So I've been collecting them all. I'm committed now. So
I have two. I just have Western, and it was a toss-up between the two, which one I was choosing. I really like that one too. But
yeah,
awesome. That was your number
6,
right?
Yep.
My number 5 is Seven Wonders Duel by Anton Bowser and Bruno Cathala, made in 2015. This one is the 2-player version of Seven Wonders. I love it. I think it's better than the big game. It's like card drafting as well, and it has a neat mechanic that other games have copied since then, where they place the cards in kind of a pyramid formation, and they're different depending on which what is it, phase?
Era you're on.
Era, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 3 eras, and you have different colored cards in each era, the backs of them, I guess. And so you have them in this pyramid, and you will take one card if it's available. You can't take anything under those cards. So at the beginning, there's only a couple. And then as soon as you take something and it like opens up other cards, then you flip those over and they're available. And you're just like tableau building, like in Seven Wonders, trying to build your wonders or just build up resources so that cards will be free to take. You can win by a science victory, you can win by a military victory, or you can win by a civic victory, which is just having the most points. I don't know what it is I love about this game, but I really, really like it. Nobody seems to like it, in my family or like in my gaming group, really. So I have to find someone who's going to really like it. There's a little solo variant, but it's still not the same because it's another like interesting little Euro game, but chess-like in the fact that it's just, like, oh, I got to take this because you really need that card. I don't really need it, but you do, so I'm just going to take it and flip it and put it under my wonder and not even use it. So there's a lot of take that in it. And I have the first expansion to it. It's really good. I haven't got the second one, but I don't know. It's a really fun game. I love it. Seven Wonders Duel, my number 5.
That is a good one. And it's so neat because you create this whole like solitaire card game layout. And some are upside down, some are face up. And you'd be like, well, I kind of want to go there. So I would pick this one up, but then that would release this one. And what if they grab it before I can? So it's interesting. It's neat. I like this one a lot.
Because, there's a card way deep in there, and you're like, how can I take a card so that she flips that one, I flip that, and then,
freeze
so
up
I can
this
get that one way under there.
Yeah.
It never happens. But
no, it really
you think
doesn't.
you have this strategy to get that deep card.
Yeah, that's a great pick for sure.
Yeah.
Now, my number 5 is Oh My Goods. This is the smallest game in my list. It was published in 2015, created by Alexander Pfister, and it's created by Lookout Game. And this one's because it's a deck of cards. That's it. But the deck of cards, they do everything. It's your market, and you have like sun symbols that'll show, and it'll decide how much card goes in your morning market and how many cards will go in your evening market. And then after the morning market is revealed, you get to decide what you want to try to create. Now, you can use the cards that are in your hands as well as goods and be like, okay, well, I'm going to need this and this to be able to build this. And I don't have quite enough in the morning market. Do I kind of push my luck and then hope that it shows up in the evening market? Or do I kind of do like the easier turn where I can kind of forego one of the goods? You're not going to create as much, but then you're more likely to complete what you get, what you need. And then afterwards, these cards also become the goods that they're creating. So you'll be kind of creating that. And then depending on which stack it's put on, how much it's worth. And then you can kind of transform some goods to utilize with other buildings that you would have done that transforms it into an even more, not expensive, but I guess with a good that has more worth in it. And it is so neat how all the cards do all the multiple things, and you got to decide, say, okay, well, this has the good that I need, but I was really hoping to build this thing. So I kind of don't want to use it. Well, maybe it'll show up in the evening market. Then I don't have to spend this card. And it's neat. The whole decision and the kind of figuring out how you're going to use the cards you got is an amazing game. So that's my number 5. Oh My Goods.
Yes, Alexander Pfister. He's a brilliant designer. And I didn't even think of that one for this, but that's an awesome choice. I love that game. Good one. All right, my number 4 is, so it's the same square kind of box we were talking about, but it's a little bit thicker. This is Parks, made by Henry Audubon in 2019. This is such a beautiful game. You are a hiker in this game, and there is a path laid out for you that you will each choose a spot. You can go as far ahead as you want, but you can't go backwards. So you will kind of slowly try to go along this path, collecting resources, because you'll need these resources to visit parks. And the park cards are these tall tarot size cards, and they just have the most beautiful art on them. They are the, I don't know if it's 59 or it's a certain number of national parks in the United States. I wish they'd make a Canadian version, because we have beautiful national parks here too. But it's really nice. And the components are so nice too. It comes with these 2 trays that are in a form of a tree, and they each have lids, and you flip them open, and they have like all wooden, components of water, sun, trees, mountains. And then they have these wild tokens, which are all wild animals. So it's all like a beaver, like a moose, bears, and all kinds of little things. But the production, other than the production, it is a good game, because you're not just collecting resources and filling out these cards. You also can buy gear. So the gear will give you certain benefits or bonuses, or make parks cheaper to visit, or they'll let you gather different things at locations where normally you could only get one thing. You might be able to get a few things, or you could trade something for a wild, or it'll let you visit more parks. Like, it's all kinds of things, the gear. And there's an expansion to this as well that is neat. It lets you tent overnight, and you go to another location and get different things. But it's such a neat game, because it's just 4 rounds. There's 4 seasons. And you will, once you get to the end of the trail, then you have to wait for everybody, and then you go back to the front, and you'll go again 4 times. And you also have objectives that you're trying to fulfill throughout the game. So there might be certain cards that you want, like all the cards with like suns on them. You want to collect as many of those as you can. It's just a nice, relaxing game, and so pretty to look at. The art is spectacular. I love this one. It's a very simple game, but I've been playing it so much on Boardgame Arena too. It's an easy one, because the icons are so large that you don't have to look close it or make everything bigger to see everything. It's just really easy to read and tell what it is. That's my number 4, Parks.
Nice. So my number 4 is One Deck Dungeon. It's published in 2016. It's created by Chris Yellick, and it's published by Asmati Games. And this one is a cool game. So this is a solo or 2-player game. So you have the character that you can play in, and all the characters are female. So you have all these female characters, and it's a bunch of, like whether you have the warrior or a mage, or, like all these different dungeon characters that you can play as. And each character have different dice that they have access to start with. So you'll have some red dice, blue dice, yellow dice. So you kind of create a team if you're playing 2 players, and then you'll kind of together come up with these different dice. And then you have this big deck of card, and this is another one that's like multi-use cards, which I really like in a game. And then you have these different monsters that you can go through, and then you start with the top monster, and you'll put it kind of face down, and it has like these different things that you gotta kind of battle each round. And then so on your turn, you're going to have 4 cards that are face down, and these are the different rooms in the dungeon you can visit. And it'll either be a monster or it'll be a trap. And then you'll flip a card over. You can kind of flip multiple cards over and decide which one you're going to go to. But every time, so you flip a card over. If you decide not to do the card and run away, you lose time for doing that, right? So, and the time makes you discard some cards from the deck. So as you get closer to the bottom, like you're reaching the big boss monster, and you go through the deck, I think, a couple of times, but like during this whole thing, you're preparing your character, trying to get them stronger. But then you'll have the cards. So let's say you have this card, and they'll have different symbols on the card. And it'll be, you know, like different color squares, and it'll have hearts on it or time on it or different things. So then you roll your dice, and your character will also kind of have special abilities where you can maybe manipulate some of the dice, you know, so maybe you can change the value of a yellow to be a 6. Because if you have one of the square that's a yellow square and it has a 5, then you need to put a dice on that's a yellow or a black, because black is wild, dice on there that's a value of 5 or higher. So it gets a little bit more tricky. Then maybe you have a blue square that's a 2, so then that's fairly easy to cover up. You can always trade 2 of your dice to make it into any colored dice, but you have to make it into the lower value of those 2 dice. So it could make it great. We'll make this one into a pink or red, but then it's not strong enough for what you needed to do. And so it's really interesting on how you allocate your dice onto this room. And you're like you kind of use both your dice together. Say, okay, well, maybe use your potion to make this dice do this, and then we can cover this. And it could very well be that you don't cover everything up. And anything that doesn't get covered up is either going to cost health or it's going to cost you time. So it's like, oh, shoot, we didn't cover that, and we lose 2 times for that and a health. Okay, well, I'm healthier than you are, so I'll take the damage, and we lost 2 times. And so you kind of try to decide, say, well, we can do this one easy, but that one is just 1 time, so maybe let's not concentrate on this one yet. And so it's so neat with the rolling the dice and the assigning it to this little card. And then once you complete the card, then you can add the card to your character, either slide it in where the dice are, so you gain more dice the further in you go. So, okay, well, I'm going to take this one, so now I have a yellow dice because I didn't have any yellow dice. Or you can slide it on the bottom of your player deck, or your player board, because now it gives you a new ability that you can activate. And it allows you to manipulate dice a little bit more. So it's kind of like deciding, okay, or do we just spend this card to level up our character so that we can collect more cards in the future? Because at first you can only collect 1 extra increase, I guess, or level up ability. But then the further you go in, the more you level up, then you can start adding up to through 2 and 3 cards to your character, trying to make them more powerful. This game is the size of like a tiny epic game, or smaller maybe even. But it's that size, so it takes no room, but it's so satisfying to play with the rolling the dice, the characters, the leveling them up, deciding how you're going to spend the card that you just completed, then bringing in the new dungeon and kind of going through. It's so much fun. And that's my number 4 one deck dungeon.
Awesome. That's interesting. You said it was all women warriors.
Yeah.
Is it a women designer? A female designer?
No, Chris is a gentleman. He felt there wasn't a lot of game that kind of represented women enough, so he did one that was all woman character. And it's neat because there's a Facebook page that's One Deck Dungeon Facebook page. Oh, yeah. And the first time me and my cousin were playing this, and we had a few questions, like, I don't think we're doing this right. And we went and asked on that group. And Chris, the designer, answered us and kind of like, awesome. Okay, well, I think he knows. He made the game. So
about their game when they do that. Okay?
Exactly. They're was concerned. Neat to see.
Yeah. They want you to play it right. And
they want you to enjoy it. Kind of, for sure. Nice. And this one is great.
Awesome. All right, that was your number 4, right? Mm-hmm. My number 3 is called The Bloody Inn, made in 2015 by Nicholas Robert. So this one is a really interesting theme because you're at this hotel, you work at this hotel, and you are basically trying to kill and bury people. And that's how you get their money. You steal their money when you've buried them. And that's how you win the game with the most money. But it's interesting because there's different things you can do. It's basically a card game. You start with a hand of cards. I think you just start with 2 peasants, maybe. And I think that's it, actually. I haven't played it in a little while, but I usually play it around Halloween. But you can hire people or bribe people. You can, I don't think it's called hire though. It's called a certain thing, but you have to play a card to like get a card kind of thing. And then once you've taken a card, because the peasant cards are just the base ones, they don't have any kind of ability on them. But say I hire like someone that has a gun on it, on the like a gun icon. It could be a cop or just someone else that has a gun. Then the next time, I can shoot someone, so I can kill them, and this person will help me because they have a gun. So I don't have to give up a card then, because they help. Like if it's a 2 icon, then I only need 2 strength to like kill that person. So if I had 2 guns in my hand, well, I don't have to get rid of those. They help me kill that person. So this person just you put them, you just lay them down for now. Now the thing is, you need to bury them before the end of the round if there's a cop out there in the hotel, because if there is, then they will catch you, right? So if there's not, then you can leave this person just laying around, or I don't know, in their hotel room maybe, I guess. But it's really tongue-in-cheek, like theme. Like it's not serious. It doesn't take itself serious, but it's so interesting because then you have people who will help you bury people, and other people you can actually bury them in other people's what do they call them? They call them annexes. So you have to build annexes to bury more people in order to get money, but you can actually bury them in other people's annexes. They do get some of the money, but it's sometimes easier to do than to get a bunch of cards to be able to build another annex to bury this person. And it's just so weird and neat. And you do have to deposit your money too, because if you have too much money, you can only hold so much money on the point tracker before you need to like put it in the bank kind of thing, deposit it. Mm-hmm. And then you go back to 0 and you build it up again by killing more people and burying them. And it's such a weird theme, but I love it. And it's another one I can't find anyone who would like to play it, but it's talked about quite a bit actually. Like,
it really is.
Like this game, but nobody around me likes it, but I love it. It's That's such funny. A weird, fun game. Bloody Inn, number 3.
Nice.
Have you played it?
No, I haven't, but I have heard about it a lot. Yeah. And yeah, that theme is like, well, that's gory. Okay.
That's probably one of my only horror games, too.
I mean, like Guillotine is another one that's...
Yeah, that's such a goofy
right?
Too, yeah, true.
So my number 3 is the Manhatten Project Chain Reaction. It was published in 2016, created by James Matthey, and it's a Minion Games. So the Manhattan Project is a fairly large worker placement game. But the Chain Reaction is kind of like a small card game version of this. And it's probably like the Tiny Epic size. So it's a fairly small one. And I think the copy that I got was a Kickstarter copy because you have all the wooden tokens.
Because I have one that's in a box this big.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, mine's way bigger than that.
Comes in like a card deck, but thicker. Like that.
Yeah.
You know. So it's
well, because the ones I got, like you have for the resources that you're collecting, because you're collecting yellow cake and plutoniums or different things, and you're building bombs. And the one I have has both, where they have the card that is the resource you can be utilizing. Oh yeah, so that's more like the original Star Realm size.
Yeah, exactly. Like that thickness, and this doesn't have the fancy tokens or whatever.
Yeah, so mine has like these little wooden bit, like, which are super cool.
Yeah, they are neat.
You got the option to play with both, but yeah, you're gonna play with the wooden tokens because why wouldn't you?
What are you, insane?
Exactly. But this one's super neat because you're collecting your different workers that you can have. Like you'll have your scientists, you'll have your engineers, you'll have your labor guys. And they all kind of have the same artwork except that they are wearing different hats depending on who they are. Or it'll have glasses if it's a scientist and so on. And then you're collecting the different resources. And then when you have enough yellow cake and plutonium, you can spend that to build a bomb. And then you can actually arm the bomb and it's worth more points. And you kind of play this game until you've collected so many bombs, and it's whoever has the most value, because each bomb are worth different points. Whoever has the most value at the end of the game is the winner. It's a really neat kind of, like, because all these cards have that multi-use thing to it. Like, okay, well, am I going to use it for the worker that's on the top, or am I going to use it for the different, kind of things that you can, because they're like university or different things that you can kind of utilize as well. It's a fun one. And that's my number 3, the Manhattan Project Chain Reaction.
Yeah, another good one. I didn't think of these tiny little ones, but this is really good. And it's a good solo game too. I played it. I think I basically bought it for solo because I didn't assume that others would play this one with me. But
Right.
it's a really good solo game.
Because otherwise it plays, what, 4 players? I think, or
5, 1 to 5.
5. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But neat.
I mostly
it's
play
super
this
easy
too.
travel. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it a good 2-player game?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it as a 2-player
obviously
game,
it's on
but
your list.
well, exactly.
Yeah.
It made the top 3, so
Yeah. And only 20 to 30 minutes, so it's an easy, quick game.
it is it's a quick one to get to the table, but there's still like a lot of weight to your decisions, kind of like, okay, well, I want to, it's like, and then, oh, darn, you took the bomb I wanted, and it's so, but yeah, no, it's neat. I really enjoy that one.
Good one. That's your number 3. My number 2 is Agricola, all creatures big and small. And I put a slash with cave versus cave. So these are the 2-player versions of Agricola and Caverna, because you know how I'm undecided about the 2?
Yes.
So, they will always be combined together until I choose. It'll happen, but I don't know when. But so these
You
2
don't have to. You can love them both.
I know. It's so hard. But this was made by Uwe Rosenberg, one of my favorite designers, in 2012. And this is a farming game. And it's a quicker version of like the 3 to 3.5 hour game of each of those. This one plays in, I think, probably under an hour, I would say. But you still get to build up your farm with animals. I don't believe you grow food in that one, but it's just buildings. Yeah, there's no wheat and
you don't have to
pumpkins
feed anybody,
and you don't have to feed, which is usually his thing. But it's so neat because you have these little buildings that you can use, and those will help you breed faster or be able to hold more animals.
Yeah.
You still have your little barns that you want to put on your pastures so that you can put more animals there. But the worker placement spots are very few because there's only 2 of you. And some of them will build up if nobody goes there, but there's usually a couple that you want to be first player, which is a spot on its own. So you don't get to trade back and forth who's first player. So you have to take that. You do get a resource with it, but it's so neat. I love the farming in general. It's such a satisfying game of just building your farm. I've always been fascinated with farms, even as a child, just in general, animals, growing them, breeding them, and I don't know. I just love it. I love the farming theme. It's so fun. And it's so cute to see your little pastures with fences around with your little animals in them. It's almost like you're playing too,
Yeah.
It's a big adult toy, but very thinky as well. I love it. Agricola, all creatures big and small. / cave versus cave.
Yeah, I've played that one, and I've played Agricola. And it's really neat because, it definitely has that same feel. You get that same
you get the feel
itch,
of it, yeah.
But it's in a much quicker version of it. It plays a lot quicker. Jerome loves that one because he's a big farm. They grow up on a farm, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're little farm boys, and he really likes that theme. And that that was one that he quite enjoyed, both the small version, like the 2-player version, and the original Agricola. So great pick.
It's good. And the cave one, you have to clear out your cave before you can build in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's really neat. Yeah, they're both good. That's
Perfect.
My number 2.
Perfect. So my number 2 is Watergate. Watergate was published in 2019. It's created by Matthias Kramer, and it's published by Frosted Game. And this one was just actually recently republished with a white box cover. I have the original, the black box cover, and I bought this one because it was good price. I had heard good things about it, but I knew almost nothing about the Watergate scandal. So I got looking into that, and it was so interesting because
it is interesting. Yeah,
it is interesting. Yeah. So the Nixon administration at that time, now this, he was from military background, so he was doing a lot of wars. And the U.S. people were starting to get really frustrated with this because, for one, their family members are gone off to war. And a lot of them, and they felt that it was unnecessary. So But the Nixon administration, even though he was losing popularity, was trying really hard to make sure that he was getting reelected, so that they were hiding and destroying documents and hiding some stuff about that was, kind of happening, so that that wouldn't come to kind of public knowledge to try to get him to be reelected. And there was 2 journalists that started unraveling this whole thing and started kind of pulling out this information and going public with it until eventually it created an official FBI investigation. And this game is based on that. So one player plays as the Nixon administration trying to get reelected, and the other one is playing as the journalist trying to create these links between these whistleblowers and Nixon. And the way that it happened is you have 3 documents that comes out every round, and you got 2 tokens. They're like a white token and a red token. And this is a tug of war game. So you'll be playing these cards that move the documents towards you. And then, so I'll play, it's like, hey, well, if I'm on the journalist, I don't know what color those documents are. They'll be yellow, red, and blue, I think. I think it's 3 colors. Maybe there's a green one as well. But so there's different kind of categories of documents. I could be like, hey, well, if there's a blue document, I want to move that one 3 towards my side. Now, Nixon knows. They're the one who draws these documents because they know what's out there. They're the one who are trying to destroy these because they created these documents, right? So they know what they are. So then you get the 3s like, yes, there's a blue. And then some documents are 2 colors. It's a blue and a yellow combination. So then I'll be able to reveal that document, and then it moves 2 spaces towards the journalist. But then I'll be playing my own card and move it back towards my side. Now, if it's in the neutral zone in the middle, nothing happens with it. They go away. But if it ends up on my side or the Nixon side, then Nixon gets to take that document and put it on the black side because they've destroyed it, and they can block the path between on the board. And on the board, it's like a cork board with all these strings and push pins, and you're trying to create the link between all these kind of key witnesses and Nixon in the middle. So you're trying to put documents that'll create a path between a person that you'll talk into coming forward with their information and Nixon. And Nixon, in the meantime, is going to take these black documents and put them on these paths, trying to block the path the journalists are trying to create. It is so neat. It's so fun. And you're creating this one, and all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I'm about to create this path, and this person's going to be, but then Nixon plays a card and he bought them off, and now this witness is no longer available. So you got this whole path going to somebody that's gone. So you got to rebuild, and then the goal is to try to create 2 paths for the journalist. And Nixon is trying to make it so that they've collected the red token on their side enough time that it means they've made it through and got reelected. So it's a neat game. I really like this one. And this
one. I think
yeah.
so too.
Just the theme, like how thematic it is to the story. Yeah.
Like, how did these designers come up with the mechanic and theme? Do they go theme first, then mechanic? Because it's just,
I don't know how it works out
like that, and I'm like, how did they ever put them together?
I mean, I've seen one more game that had that tug of war kind of thing a bit. I've seen a game that had that type of mechanism, but in this case with this theme, it works so well.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's such a great game. So that's my number 2, Watergate.
Yeah, good one. I've only played this once. I borrowed a friend's to see if I liked it. And I did like it, but my gaming buddy didn't really like it. So I thought, I don't know.
What's the point if you don't play it? Yeah.
John might like it, actually. He loves politics and stuff. And you know what I did see? This game was on Amazon for $15 for a while. Wow. I think it was before Christmas. Yeah. And I kind of had it in my cart, and I waited too long, and then it was gone.
Well, this new version, like I saw they had the white version and the black version. The white version was cheaper. It's the exact same game. It's a different box cover from what I understand. Yeah, it's just the same game. But
yeah, no, it's a really good 2-player game.
Cause,
you could just rid the theme in your head and just go with the mechanics, but the theme goes well with the mechanics.
So well.
It just get into it.
And it's neat because you have all the historical thing in there too when you start reading what the cards do. And I mean, some of the cards will have like, hey, you move so many this way and so many that way, or you can do the big ability. Yeah. And the big ability will do something big, but then that card's gone forever. Yeah. Then you can't. And because you'll be going through your deck a few times. So it's like, hey, I don't think I want to trigger this just yet. But yeah, so no, it's great.
Yeah, no, I really like that one. I'm going to have to keep my eye out for that one too.
They have it at Pandora's Box, I think.
Oh, do they?
Both copies of the black and the white, I think.
Oh, and the white's cheaper, you said?
A little bit cheaper, yeah.
That's weird.
I don't know why. Yeah.
Strange. Yeah, neat. I love when they put history into games too, because I was never a big history fan as a kid. I hated social studies, which we call it here in Canada, but now when I play games with actual like live events and stuff, it just fascinates me because I'm like, I'm playing and learning. You
know what? Yeah, it's true though. It kind of it creates more depth into the games because there's so much into it. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I love it. Awesome. All right, number ones. My number one is Targi, made by Andreas Steger in 2012. This is another 2-player game. Yeah. It's such a unique worker placement game because you have this deck of cards that you build this grid around. So you build like all these cards, and in the middle you put you stagger a tribe card with a resource card. So they're all staggered. They're never touching the same one. And then you flip them over, and you have 3 Targis. So you're controlling nomadic tribes, and you will place one on one of the outside cards, and then the other player will place one, and you can't put one across from another player, and then you'll play another one. So you have 3 that you'll play all over the board, and then wherever they connect, you're going to place these little tokens, and all those things you're going to collect in a round. So sometimes like you'll put one at the bottom and you want this thing in the middle, and the other player knows, well, yeah, I know what you want. So they'll block it so that you can't make that connection for that one thing. So then you're placing them other places and trying to get other things. But it's really neat because what you're doing is for the remainder of the game, you're trying to build these Targi tribes or nomadic tribes in a tableau of 4x4, I think, or 4x5. And if you get all the same ones in a line, you get big points. If you get all different ones in a line, you get a little bit less points. But if you get like all mixed up and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, then you don't gain many points at all. So you're trying to get like certain tribes in your lines, and you can place them wherever. Like once you pay the goods and take the tribes. But each tribe has a little ability on it. So it can make others cheaper, it can make that one cheaper, it can give you extra points for having it in a certain spot. And the resources are pepper, spice, salt, and gold. Gold is very hard to come by. But you can go to a spot that will trade. You can trade a bunch of goods for gold. So it's really neat. I play this all the time on BGA. I love it, but I love playing the actual tabletop game with the cards, and I have the upgraded tokens that are really neat with all the resource chips that are tiles. Oh, nice. And then gold coins, of course, and the points are actually like little they look like little weapons almost, but they're
they're like really a nice. Little what is it like you would wear on a necklace.
Yeah. A pendant.
Like a pendant. Right? Yeah, like it's kind of like a pendant.
They're really neat. Yeah.
It does look cool.
It's such a neat game. And I've had it for a long time, and I've kind of come back and forth to it, but now I'm just really into it. It's such a fun game. I love it. That's my number one. Targi.
Yeah, that's one that I bought a month or two ago because it's a game that's talked about so much. It's like, oh my God, this is such a great game. And I had never played it. I didn't understand what was so unique about it. But yeah, that the worker placement aspect of it where you're kind of, and be like, okay, I really want to activate this. And then they put like, why did you have to go there? Oh, you're not even using that spot. You just blocked me. Yeah.
You don't want
it's so cool because you're activating the outer area. And then some of them, like you can go in one that allows you to move your token so you can try and go and activate that as well. Yeah. It's so cool. It is so good. Great pick. Yeah. Okay, well, my number one is Le Havre, the inland port. It was published in 2012. It's a Uwe Rosenberg game, and it's created by Lookout Games. And I've never played Le Havre, but based on this one, I really want to. And this one here, so it's a two-player game, and each player has this little rondelle, and you're got another board that kind of has a grid that keeps track of your resources, and you have the 3 tokens on there that is your resources, and you'll spend your resources to buy these buildings that are available to you. And when you buy a building, you put it just on the other side of where your rondelle is, and each turn you move the rondelle forward, so slowly these buildings come further and further away from your little rondelle clock hand, basically, right? And the further away it is, the more valuable they become, and the more you can do with the action. And it could be like, okay, so I'm going to work on this, and then you can move the resources up. And the resource track thing is so cool too, because if you're moving the thing up, it gives you, because when you spend a resource, if you're going to spend 1, you move it to the left. If you need to spend 3, you would move it down. And if you spend 4, you would move it down 1 and to the left 1. So that's spending 4. So it's, you technically, because if you got all the way to the left and you can't go left anymore, well, then you can't spend 1. You're going to have to spend 3 because you can only move down. So you're trying to keep your resources as far up and right as you can, but that corner is missing. Like you can't, it's the managing of the resource is so cool. So cool. Neat. And then you have these building that you got in this rondelle that you want to activate. Say, okay, well, I really want to activate this one, but I want to make the most out of this. I'm going to wait 2 turns and then I'll activate it. And it's going to do this big thing. But you can spend money to activate buildings on the other player's rondelle. And then, so all of a sudden, you're like saving this one, and then the other player go and they activate your building, and it resets it and brings it back down to the arm in your rondelle, making it like losing all the value kind of building in this action. And it's like, what did you do? So, because the buildings aren't yours, they're on your board. But they're available to everybody. Well, to the other players. It's a 2-player game, but they're available to the other players. So it's like, oh no, so you want to make sure you use it before somebody else does. But so it is neat that way. And then if for some reason you don't activate a building and the rondelle catches up to it, well, now you're forced to sell it for half its value. Because any other building you have on your rondelle at the end of the game is going to give you points. So you're trying to keep them going because they're worth more points full value than selling them half value. It's so neat. I loved how intriguing the mechanism were in this game. The whole keeping the building, the utilizing them, the moving them ahead. The kind of was like, well, I'm going to wait to buy this so that, like and then the whole managing of the resources, the whole thing is genius. It is so amazing. I love it. That's my number one, Le Havre, the inland port.
Good choice. Yeah, I like this one too. It's really good. We will have to do an episode on 2-player games because there's so many good
there really is, yeah.
games that it's going to be a hard one to do, but
yeah,
a good one.
Awesome. Perfect. So that was it for our top 9 list. Now next week we are doing our top 9 games of games you can play on the deck. And actually I made my list already and we were testing it out because we made a brisket on the barbecue today. So you barbecued that all day. Yeah. And then we're like, hey, well, what should we do? It's like, well, let's play a game. I have a list. And it was great. So games that aren't going to fly away in the wind, right? Yeah. So that's going to be next week. Now, before we wrap things up, Carla, if we want to find you, where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Boardgame Specialist, all one word. And I have a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. What about you?
Perfect. Yes. So I am also on Instagram as the boardgame_mama. My YouTube channel is also Boardgame Mama. And I recently changed the name of my Facebook group. It used to be Disbury and Areas playing all the games. Now it's Board Game Mama and friends are playing all the games. So yeah, because the Disbury group was becoming less and less Disbury and more all over the world.
Yeah.
So that was kind of part of one of my motivation to change it. So,
Right.
but be sure to look us up and be sure to tune in next week to catch our next top 9 games. So that's it for now. Bye, everybody.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening.